The Becoming Flame podcast broadcasts pure, unfiltered power exchange that stokes the flame of your being. Because it's time to remember. It's time to return. It's time to become flame. Hi, welcome to another episode of Becoming Flame. Today we are going to talk about the alchemization of greed into a holy embodiment. Hi, and welcome back to Becoming Flame podcast. Today we are going to talk about how to turn greed, the sin of gluttony, into a holy embodiment of what could be your next alchemical superpower through this transformational process, through the shifting of what is required to actually see what is underneath greed. So first of all, why is it even a sin? Right? Why is greed a sin? Because if you have a population that believes the abundance of the universe is infinite, that all that somebody desires and wants and yearns for and is part of the truth of them can be achieved and can be possible, and you are the creator of that, and you could create anything as big and as much as you would want, and you can amass as much wealth or as much abundance or as much of whatever it is that you are greeding and lusting and gluttonous over. You can't be controlled, right? Because control comes from a scarcity mindset. It comes from a scarcity model where an overculture has whatever it is that we all need to survive, and then trickles that down into all the other people at the bottom. And so these people depend on these people to get tiny little bits. And then these people at the bottom are so busy trying to do all the things that they need to do to get just the little bits that they have nothing left over. They have no energy left over. They have no abundance of anything left over. There's no overflow at the end of whether that's a week, a month, a year, or a lifetime. And then it starts again and again and again, each generation, because nobody has enough to get out of that system And so we're hooked into it and we're linking into it, and it just stays. Why, therefore, is greed important? So first of all, let's stop calling it greed, because people are not inherently greedy. Actually, that's one of the greatest myths. People are not inherently greedy. Even people who are grossly obese, who overeat to the point of total destruction, even them cannot eat every second of every day. So there is a limit to greed, because at some point you get satiated. And if you're truly embodied, you're never going to overeat to the point where you feel discomfort, because you're in your body. You feel your body. My belief is that a lot of people who do overeat or overindulge in certain things, they're trying to feel their body. They're actually trying to feel it. They're trying to make it big enough and heavy enough that they can feel it, because they don't know how to get into their body to feel what they want to feel, to be grounded and safe and heavy and solid enough. They probably didn't feel like they had a solid foundation. And so they're trying to create solidity in the physical form around them because they lack solidity in self. And so when we really debunk what greed or overindulgence is, a lot of the time it's got nothing to do with a scarcity model. It's got to do with feeling that connection to a higher purpose, to a higher role for oneself. Okay, so let's go back to scarcity. Why does this exist? So we know that it's very easy to control people when you need them to be constantly coming back to you. They're dependent on you for income, for food, for housing, for what to do that day. When they've been indoctrinated in a system where they don't even think for themselves, and now AI is coming on board of that. Track that out to some, not even 30 years into the future. Track that out 5 years from now, 10 years from now. How much thinking are you going to do for yourself? Critical and analytical, deep process thinking versus just outsourcing that to AI. And here's the easiest way to know that to be true. When you don't know where to go somewhere and you're on the street in your own hometown or in your own country, you're not traveling to a different place that you've never been, like you just know more or less where you are, but not 100%. How do you find that location? You pull out this thing in your pocket and you tap it in, and then you follow those directions there, right? Well, in your childhood, depending on how old you are at the time that you're listening to this, but most of us who are likely listening to this podcast remember that you used to have a book. Now, when I was living in Paris, when was it? 2008. So maybe the iPhone had come out, but people definitely didn't people weren't in this realm of like, I just only use an iPhone and I'm so like, apps weren't a thing then. It was just maybe an elevated font. We didn't know what smartphones were going to be yet, right? So in 2008, I lived in Paris and I had this compact book that I would just carry around with me. And it was divided by arrondissement. And then you would just like find where you were going to go. And then you would trace it with your finger, or you would look at it in the map. And then you would look at the street sign and you would be like, okay, this is where I am. You would geo-navigate yourself. You would geolocate yourself by looking at the map and looking at the street and looking around you, or by talking to people, right? And so that's how you would go. And wanting that zest for life, wanting to be involved in life, wanting to be in the streets, ingest the culture, ingest France, ingest Paris, like take it all in and want more and more and more and fill yourself up with that, is greed, right? That's the indulgence. That's the thing that they don't want you to have. Why? I was 19, 20, this age, and I would go out every night to a jazz bar or to to some kind of a live performance. I arrive there by myself. I didn't know anyone. And I was so greedy to speak French, to make friends, to be part of life. And that desire, that greediness, that yearning, that longing, this is the feeling of greed, right? Like I want to take it all in. I want to bring more to me. Do you know what another word for that is? Passion, indulgence, enjoyment, immersion, right? So when we go into something and we bring that all into us and we want to bathe ourselves in it, we want to immerse ourselves in it, we want to do deep dive into a culture or an experience, and we want to be in the streets and we want to talk to people. The easiest way for me to make friends when I was in Paris was to talk to people, to ask them directions, to ask them like, what's this place, So within 6 months of arriving, I was fully fluent in French because every day I gluttonized myself. I completely immersed. I brought it all into me and I was indulgent in every single way. I made so many friends. I met boyfriends. I integrated into the culture via these people that I just started talking to in a bar because I went out and I wanted to like eat it all up. And every night I would be out until like 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning and just loving it. I was so high on life that for like 2 years, and I was also very young, 2 years, I could live this vibrant, huge life on 4 or 5 hours of sleep every night. And I realized I didn't have to eat as much. I didn't have to sleep as much. I didn't have to do any of that like self-care that if you're not living a life full of passion, full of gluttonous living, of greed and indulgence, then you need to eat more, you need to sleep more, your body's tired. It's not in vitality, it's not indulging, it's not, loving everything that it's high on. And so if you have a culture of people that are passionate, that are full of life, that are full of vitality, that are full of health, that are buzzing, that are vibrating, that believe that the universe is infinite and abundant and that all that they want is coming to them and it is available freely and through all these other ways of just bringing that which you want to you, then you don't have people who are sick, you don't have people who are dependent, you don't have people that need you in any way, that you don't have control over them. So gluttony, greed, is a sin. Because if you indulge every single passion that you have and you deep dive into something, then how do you control them? Those are free people. If somebody doesn't need money to enjoy life, I was earning pennies, nothing, and I had the most amazing time. I will tell you how much I earned when I lived in Paris. I earned 300 euros per month. I had like a tiny studio, like on the top of a top of an apartment building. It's called a chambre de bonne, and they would, I don't know, it would be enough room for like a mattress. And I was lucky that I actually had my own bathroom and shower, but everybody else on the floor had a shared shower and toilet, and they had just enough room for a mattress, maybe not even on a stand because the ceilings were like really low. And every night I would either go out and, find dinner or snacks or something somewhere, or I would sit on my little, it was like this tiny little windowsill on this slanted roof, like, the like really typical Parisian ones that would go up onto the top. And I would sit there and I would either climb, like honestly, perilously climb on this like very slanted, like I would say steeper than 60 degrees. I would climb onto it and sit at the top of that. And like, I think back now and I'm like, oh my God, how did I not die? But anyway, of course I didn't die. I'm not allowed apparently. And then I would sit there and I would like eat my cheese and my bread for dinner or whatever. And I had a view, an unencumbered view to the Eiffel Tower in one direction, and then like the Arc de Triomphe, and then like all of these other areas in Paris that I could see, because Paris is actually very flat and it doesn't have like really tall buildings. So like if you are on an elevated scale, you can actually see quite far. Anyway, so I had, I was in walking distance to the Eiffel Tower and I could see that every night, and then do the light show. I mean, obviously that gets a bit old after a while, but that was my greed. That was me like bringing it all in and just like, oh my God, I'm living in a movie and this is amazing. And so you really don't need to eat a lot when you are already full up, when you're full of culture, when you're full of life, when you're full of love, when you're full of adventure and exotic whatever you're doing, right? Okay, so that's the first reason why greed would be a sin. Nobody can control somebody who doesn't need anything from them. When you are free in your spirit, when you're free in yourself and your passion is flowing, your life force is flowing, your vitality is flowing, and you are in that overflow, that's greed, right? Overflow is greed. It's gluttonous. It is more than you need. And they don't want you to have that. And so one of the first really important things to start to understand and unpack is, if you want to be living a life of overflow, where are you denying yourself more than you need? Because overflow is literally more than you need. It is overflowing from your needs. It is more than you can handle. It is more than you need at that time. And so, are you denying yourself with food or with excitement or with pleasure or with love? with partnership, with help? Are you denying help? Are you denying money, work, opportunities? Where is the I'm not allowing myself overflow? I'm not allowing myself to be greedy, to be gluttonous in your life? Because that will hold some really important information for you to go, okay, is that even true? Like, where is that belief coming from? Can I release that now? Why is denying myself in this place in my life serving me? What is it keeping me safe from? What is on the other side of that denial? Why don't I want that? What does that mean? So, for example, if you are denying yourself more work, for example, more money, sorry. If you're denying yourself more clients, more money, maybe you think, oh, that's because I don't want to do more work. So is the information that you don't want more money? So is the information I don't want more money? Or is the information I need to consider restructuring the way that I earn money so that earning more money doesn't earn me more work? So many, many years ago, I started to cap my income. And I made this discovery that for me, earning money was very tied into the amount of abuse that I would receive. Okay, so a lot of us have been here, abusive bosses, maybe abusive parents, around how you received money as a child. Like if you wanted $10, you needed to do something in order to get that $10 that you didn't necessarily want to do. I'm not talking about like do some chores. Maybe that is traumatic for you. I don't know. Unpacking the dishwasher is not my favorite thing, but I don't know that it would have been my childhood trauma. But it might have been for you. I'm not going to judge. But what I was realizing was, for me, when I needed to ask my father for money when I was growing up, it was set on so many different conditions, hoops to jump through, and requirements for me to do things that I really didn't want to do. So my father was very physically abusive when I was a child, and my mother didn't have the resources and the finances that sometimes I would have needed. And so I had to ask him for that money. And my body started to associate, especially gaining money from a masculine figure, from a paternal or dominant figure or authority, because, like, for example, he had the money, I didn't. I needed to beg or ask of him. I needed to do a presentation of like justification of why I needed that money. And so first of all, that like really drilled into me, do everything you possibly can without money before you have to subjugate yourself to the humiliation of asking your abuser for resources. Huge pattern for me. Huge. Super fun stuff. So not only was it not freely given, I needed to justify to my own father why I would need books for school or a laptop for university, or all of these things that weren't necessarily indulgent and like pleasure based. Like, this is what I really, really want in life. It wasn't like clothes or concert tickets. Like, I would never ask my father for like, could I go and do this really fun thing that I would love to do? Because the act of asking for that stipend would be so much worse than any of the fun that I could get from that event. So for me, asking him for money was like a re-traumatization every time. And so if anybody's been physically abused by somebody and then they have to ask that person for anything, but particularly like a capacity to carry out an obligation in your life, for example, schooling. I didn't know I had a choice not to finish high school at that time. Maybe I would have never chosen that anyway. And so, these things that were like asking my body to contract and distort, and like, I hate this feeling. So I grew up being like, I never want to ask anyone for anything. And what was not fascinating, very obvious if you are in this realm and understanding this like way of, alchemizing pain into power. But whenever I got a job, I only ever had a male boss, obviously. And so going and asking for a raise or for a promotion or any of that would bring me so much absolute scrutiny. Like it would just be like, my God, I would rather quit and have no money than be putting myself in a position to beg, because all my bosses were extremely abusive. I forgot to say that part. And so I would have to yet again beg my abuser for more money. And then the way that boss would abuse me was through financial abuse, right? So not paying my invoices or not paying promotions or not paying overtime. And I would have to go and like advocate for myself for this person who was mentally, emotionally, and verbally abusing me and now financially abusing me, and like beg for these crumbs that I was already like, it wasn't even like I was asking for more. It was like, I'm just asking you to honor what the deal is. And that's basically how it had started with my father as well, right? Like, I didn't ask you to birth me. I didn't ask you. And I was the eldest of 4, right? So like there was more decision points along the way to say, yeah, let's go and have more kids and do this. And so the cost associated with having children was something that he didn't necessarily want to front up to. And I would have to like beg him and justify my existence on the planet and the reasons that I would need this money to fulfill my, scholastic obligations or education or whatever it was. And it was so often after I did this whole big presentation, put this whole together, and I would like be sweating and I was so terrified of him. He would always like 90% of the time deny me after having gone through that. So I learned really quickly to have no needs, to have like non-existent financial needs, or to make that money myself. And what was interesting was and the unpacking of this greed stuff was really, really interesting for me to unpack my money stuff. Was I either only had male bosses, or I would get into a relationship with a man and my financial situation would dissolve almost immediately as I entered into that relationship. So I would be making really good money and then get into a relationship and my job would dry up or my business would dry up or something would happen that would prevent me from not working, or the idea was to, all of a sudden it was like, oh, let's go back to school and learn something, whatever. And so it was like anytime I got into a relationship, money got dried up completely and I became dependent on the male in the dynamic of my relationship. And so having to beg and ask and justify my partner for money was awful and I hated it. And then when I was working, I only ever had these male bosses and having to ask them for money was just as awful. And so the only way that I could ever make money was working directly for myself and trying very hard not to get into a relationship. And so money and relationships and power and abuse all became really entangled. And so my juvenile or unhealed conclusion to that I think any person would naturally become obvious to them to make, was to reduce all my financial needs and to live outside of money, which, by the way, is an extremely valuable skill set for what may be coming up in the future. And who knows what's going to happen. Maybe I'm a genius that I don't even know about. And this is not a story about, reducing my need and grabbing my transforming my greed into overflow. But maybe it's like, and now I know how to live outside of money and currency, and you suckers are going to go down with the financial system and I'm going to live off grid. I don't know. Put a pin in that story for later. But for now, I'm telling you about alchemizing my greed into overflow. So for me, greed was tied into abuse. And actually, that's the case for everybody, because an abusive system is controlling you into believing that what you truly desire is too much. It's bad. It's a sin. You shouldn't want for anything. What is the number one thing that the church says all the time, and that, and our culture says, or war culture says, is like, want not. Don't want anything. Don't need anything. Don't have desires. Don't have goals and visions and ideas for yourself. Naughty, naughty, naughty. Don't do that. So untangling this abuse from this money was such a huge process for me. And basically, even when I could come out of full scarcity and into the next level of abundance for me, the more money I made, the more abuse that came with it. Until such a time, I literally heard myself say to one of my coaches or therapists, I can't remember who I was talking to, but I remember saying, I don't want to, I think it was a coach that I was working through to try to break into the next level. And she was getting really frustrated with me. She was trying to do this all mental mindset stuff, which does not work if you're truly trying to alchemize your life, right? It's all held in your body. So I remember her saying to me, I don't understand why, logically, you want more money. Logically, your life is going to, so what is the problem here? And I remember blurting out, I cannot take any more shit. I just cannot take any more shit. There's nothing that I want in this world enough to take any more shit for it. And I said to her, my version of a luxurious, beautiful, decadent life at the moment is being left alone. And I would take zero money for that piece. I can't take it anymore. It's too much. The stress, the anxiety, the bullshit that I have to deal with every day from all of these people outside of me. And the more responsibility that I have to take on, the more abuse that I get every single day. And I literally cannot. So for me, the overflow was abuse. It was overflowing my life. I was in so much abuse from all of these people because in my mind, I was earning more than I ever thought I could. And therefore my life was overrun by these abusive people all around. And that was still not even the aha moment. And well, actually, that's not true. It was an aha moment. So that was an aha moment that I was yeah, I already know this though. I already know that my money is linked to abuse. I've been doing this. I've been doing all of these practices. I've been going through it. And years on, I am still no further along than I was. When I make no money, and I'm not in a relationship, I have this most peaceful, beautiful, decadent life where I'm that's how I want to feel every day. And I could learn to live outside of the currency of money that I saw was so linked into a system of abuse that because I was so sensitive to the energy of that, I was even taking $1, you need to take some access point into that abuse system because it's a man-made system of have and have not, of accumulation versus just circulation. And the whole energetics felt really off for me. And so it was why would I be greedy for that, which is tied into this system of control, of scarcity, of manipulation, of deception, of slavery, right? People all go into they volunteer themselves into slavery to do all of this stuff that they don't want to do in order to get this paper to spend it on stuff that they don't even want. And so I started to really live outside of the conceptualization of what do we need money for and how can we get our needs met. And my deepest wants and desires were creativity, freedom, expression of self, truth, and ability to go wherever I wanted to go and do whatever I wanted to do that day. And so it was okay, well, how does that happen? And you live in a system of millions and millions of dollars. And I knew that lots of women could disentangle themselves from the abusive, controlling aspects of the money and the system to which it is attached. And I was okay, well, so how do you do that? And I think what really came around for me was, well, what could greed be? if I alchemized this. When I started to understand all the aspects of my life that I was so greedy for and so in overflow, it was fun, creativity, playfulness, peace, creativity, freedom, travel, love for my daughter, love, then spending a lot of time in nature, going swimming in the ocean, all of these things. I was like, oh, just like how I was in Paris or in any of the countries that I traveled to. It was like, I want to drink this all in. I want to drink it all in. I want to fill myself up. And so in that aspect, I was like, yeah. And like, look at what's happening. You're filling yourself up on all of this stuff that then gives back to you. Okay, so you're in this really beautiful give and take and overflow with the things that you're really, really in value with. And for example, having community and a village around me, and I was like filling myself up with that and overflowing and I was like, oh, this feels so good. This is like indulgent. But like anywhere where society tells you that scarcity is most predominant, for example, the one of the things that I was really, really weird about was like, it's hard to get a job. I don't know where this came from. Because I'd never experienced difficulty getting a job when I applied for one or when I like pitched myself to go and work for that company. It was always like every single time that I've ever tried to get a job, I got it like straight away. But I never liked those jobs. And so it wasn't like, oh yeah, this is amazing. Like I should just, as it turns out, like it doesn't matter what the job could be. Like it could be it was a GP, right? Like you have to do things that I don't necessarily want to do every day, and you have to answer to other people, and it's like it's not in my design. And it's not that I'm uncooperative or that I don't like the people that I was working with. It was more that it wasn't in my design. It's not my chart. It's not my blueprint. It's not my purpose. Because what I'm talking about, unpacking and disentangling myself from money and making it possible for me to earn millions of dollars through my own business and through my own skills, talents, and intelligence, and what I make and what I do and the vision that I hold, the path that I'm carving out for myself, my daughter, and anyone else who wants to come along with me. That's my bigger purpose. So part of my journey has been like finding where it's greedy for me to want that. I really, really, really want to work for myself and to be able to be my individual expression on this planet for myself and for anyone else who can benefit from me being my authentic true self. And I want to I am so greedy and excited and like indulgent in the idea that I could be paid to be me. That excites me so much more than any title that a corporate company could give me. The security of a monthly paycheck feels oppressive to me, feels constrictive to me. It feels like there's no greed to want to go after that. And so what started to be revealed to me was your greed and where you're like wanting so much for that to come to you reveals your deeper desires. It reveals the blueprint. It reveals the journey that you're on. And so what you're greeding and gluttonizing after, it's like, go there, follow that desire, follow that. Like, I want to fill myself. I want to take all of that in. I want to bring that into me. And not in a grabby or like sticky way, more in this like, wouldn't it feel amazing if I were to bring $10 million into my business this year and I could pay all of these other people that work for me a really fat paycheck, and I could then ask for $20 million the next year and I could give them even more money, and then I could give my daughter this, and I could give myself this. And I was like, oh yeah, I want to eat that. I want to take that. I want to have that as mine, because what would I do with it if I were there? And I think this is like part of The story and the journey for me was at a previous time a couple of years ago, like 8 years ago now. No, longer. I don't know. A long time. Doesn't matter. A time in the past that we would consider is a while ago. I was starting a consulting business and I just had no passion for it. And I had no desire to like accumulate clients. And every time I got a client, I was like, ugh, I don't want to do the work for you. I don't want to do this. And so I really sat down again with this greed idea or this desire idea of like, why do I want to make millions of dollars? Like, why would I do that? Why do I even need it when I know how to live so cheaply and I'm not lacking for anything? And what I did was this exercise of like, if I had $20 million, what would I ultimately want to do with that? And I kind of came up with a few ideas, but they were like more like self-serving, and they were more like in the realm of like helping others, but like really more self-serving. So I was like, yeah, I'm not in it. Like, this doesn't feel exciting. Like, I don't get it. So I was like, okay, what if I had $200 million? And then I elevated my thinking to a different level. I was like, oh yeah, bring that money to me. Yeah, like, what does it feel like? Oh my God, $200 million under my management. What would I do with it? And then that's when I clicked into, I could start investing in all these special companies, and I could travel the world trying to find the best solutions to the biggest problems on this planet that I believe need solving. And I could invest in that kind of company and this kind of company, and we could solve this problem and this problem. And then I started going, okay, so what are the problems that I really want to solve? Oh my God, I want to bring me more problems to solve. And then I was in that greed again. I was like, oh yes, bring me more problems. I want more problems. I can solve so many problems. And then I realized, I was like, $200 million is not enough. I need $1 billion to just solve these 5, 6, 7 problems. And I was like, oh my God, I need more. I need more. Bring it to me. I need to solve the biggest problems of our generation. I am this unique mind that even though when I'm in my lowest form of self, I don't believe that my mind is interesting or exciting. But here at this $1 billion level, I am the fucking genius of the planet. Bring me more intelligence. Bring me more intelligence. I want to accumulate knowledge and intelligence and pattern recognition and experts that I can work with. And I'm bringing all of these people. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, I'm working with a team of 10 like subject matter experts. I'm working with a conglomerate of a consortium of high net worth individuals who have collectively $1 billion between them. And I am bringing all of these solution architects, i.e. founders, CEOs, startups, academics, people who know different things to me. And I'm bringing them all together and I'm architecting a solution to these huge, huge problems. And that was all because I became greedier. I became desirous of a bigger solution. At $20 million, I couldn't feel it. I was like, I don't know, maybe I just buy a house and a car and a piece of land, and that's kind of it. Like, go on a few holidays, stop working for a couple of years. Like, what's $20 million going to do to change the world? And I couldn't tap into it. It wasn't greedy enough for me. It wasn't big enough for me. And so 200 million, I could start to access it. But 2 billion, 1 billion, whatever it was, like once I moved over that $1 billion mark, where it's like, now we could maybe make a dent here. But I can't do that alone. I need more people. I need more intelligence. I need more resources. I need to bring all this to me. And that's when I was like, yes, now I'm powerful. Now I know my desire. Now I step into this. Now this happens. This shifts. This moves. And so it wasn't necessarily about just disentangling myself from abuse and power. It was elevating myself to a way where the greediness of all that I needed was already there. I was down here, I couldn't access it. As soon as I came here and I brought my vision to that point, it was like the architecture is here. or at least I can assemble it in a way that it would be here, because I can see it all. I can see it, and I can translate between all these disparate, disconnected, non-unified, non-communicating points of the solution to bring that infrastructure together to create a solution around. And so even though I was working for just one entity within that global network that I created, it was like I was the glue that was bringing all of these people together, not for me and my personal career, not because I didn't care. I didn't care. I didn't get paid for any of that. What I cared, I realized I work for the earth. I work for this new earth concept, which shouldn't be a concept, which needs to be reality. And I need to be the conduit for all of this stuff to move through me. And so, in dismantling my greed, I realized all I need to do is make myself bigger to be the conduit for all of this to move through. I need to be solid. I need to be stable. And then everyone with a solution that's a right match for me and the network that I've created and the architecture that I've created can move through me and find that solution and find that grounding. And whatever codes that I'm emitting, those people need. And so here I am. I know that God, universe, source, light, whatever will pay me. The earth will pay me. I will be paid. And it's up to me and the earth to work on my issues around money. And then when I sat with the earth, who's my actual employer, and I said, why is my money so tied to abuse? And she basically said to me, how else would you dedicate your life to dismantling systems of abuse towards the harmonization or the reharmonization of earth, woman, and connection? Like, we need to bring back the mother. We need to bring back the unity. We need to bring back the harmony. And if you got paid really, really well and you had an opportunity to ignore the abuse on this planet, and you had an opportunity to ignore the abuse on this planet, it's possible you wouldn't be dismantling it. It's possible that you wouldn't be here for it, seeing it. And that changed everything for me, because all of a sudden now, every time somebody came into my orbit that was abusive or like out of characteristic, like weird and abusive, and anyone in a position of power that had opportunity to be bigger and it was abusive towards me, now I could see it differently, because it was like, and that was the shift away from this other oppressive, like light and love, spiritual, like, oh my God, if something bad happens in your frequency, that means that you're not a good person, or you're in a low vibration, or this or that. No, for me, at least my architecture and my structures, and setting up so many architectural structures for the earth, because I've done this in the US, I've done this in Australia, I've done this in China, I've done this in Europe. Wherever I go, I set up these networks and I set up these systems. It's what's in me. And it was interesting because somebody told me and explained that to me, that my South Node is in Virgo, and Virgo knows innately how to set up structures and systems and design principles for functionality. And I do it in my sleep. But as an Aquarius person, I never want to be in those systems myself. Like, I'm repelled from those systems. So I don't set up systems for me to operate within them. And so I get my greed and my gluttony and all of that fulfilled by being like, do this for the earth, and I'm making the earth so much bigger. And it's like, you come through me, and then I go on and do the next thing. And so my greed wasn't ever fulfilled by career status or by money or by accumulation or by any of that. It's fulfilled by setting up disparate, like using my unique way of thinking and being and connecting with people, putting them in structures and systems that maintain themselves beyond me and that don't need me anymore. And I go on and do the next thing and the next thing. And then, I love, like, the greed in me is like, years later, people ring me and are like, it's still functioning, it's still going so well, like what you set up was like, it's just like, it's flourishing without you, and we think about you every day and we just wish you the best. It's like, cool, this is really great. This is what I get filled up on. And so I think knowing what you're greedy for, knowing what your desire truly is so important. And I hope that story about money has been clear. And if not, I'm just going to summarize it again. Is that when I was operating at the lower end of like, I just need to make more money so I can get out of abuse, all that did was bring the abuse to match the money that I was making. And that was when it was about myself. When I stepped back and I said, let's be so gluttonous, so greedy, so in overflow in the aspects of my life that are showing up in overflow and in the ones that are not, and just allow overflow and overflow and overflow in every aspect of me and my life and my skills and my talents and my desires. What it shifted me from was, I'm not wrong. I'm not the problem in terms of not wanting this career or not wanting to work for someone else or not wanting to be in relationships that are abusive or not being so repelled by asking abusers for money or for support or for like the tiniest crumbs. Instead, it was like, step back and be like, what is the most desirous thing that you could be, that you could want, that you could have, that you could bring into your life? Being paid to be free, being paid to be me, being in overflow for the skills and talents that I am, that I have, that I possess, that I share out, that I catalyze in other people as well. And that I can, just because I build something and just because I love building that doesn't mean that I have to stick around and be smaller into the thing that I built. I can let that go and I can be like, I can build this so many times again because I love it and I'm in joy of that. So I gift this to you. I gift this to you. Here's a network of all of these things that I want and I gift this for you. And so when I was in VC and I was making all of these investments in all of these different companies, it was like, good. And now go and like, you do you, like be who you are. And I'm going to go over here and be who I am. And once I started to really just accept and bring in the gluttonous, greedy, longing, yearning, indulgent aspects of everything that I desired in my life, it just shifted until like, now it's like, yes, I'm operating at this higher level. I can bring people into that vision. The overflow is in how I spill out that into other people as well. And it's no longer about how much do I want to earn so that I can buy X thing, because that is not motivating to me at all. Or because, and so really what I want the takeaways from this episode to be are, so really what I want the takeaways from this episode to be are that greed reveals your desire. And if you can just go into your greed, into your indulgence, into your gluttony, into that part of you that just wants, without apology, then you'll discover that what you call greed is often just that part of you that finally admits, I want more life. I want more vitality. I want more beauty. I want more wealth. I want more truth. Or I want, in my case, this very specific thing that I am here to offer to the world. Because it is raw life force before it distorts into your definition of greed. Because in its unhealed form, yes, greed grasps, it's grabby and it's sticky and it's like, give it to me, give it to me. But in its alchemized form, it becomes appetite, devotion, and this capacity to receive fully that which you are desiring to have. And once you break it from this false holiness built on deprivation, once you get out of deprivation, as if like, if I deprive myself, then I'm better than, or then I'm holier than, or then I'm closer to God or whatever. When you can see that greed becomes holy, when you stop worshiping the lack, when you stop self-denial, when you stop invisibility as virtues. And that was so important for me when it wasn't necessarily that I thought it was holy to stop asking for nothing, but I did definitely think it was safer to ask for nothing, to reduce myself. So whether you think it's holy or safe, that that self-deprivation is serving a greater purpose for you, whether it's like your definition of what a good person is or what your definition of safety is. If you can discover either of those two aspects for you about why you're continuing to deprive yourself and reduce your needs into nothing and to become invisible, and you can alchemize that and you can find goodness in wanting, or you can find safety in wanting, that will be so valuable for the transformation. Because greed expands your receiving capacity, right? And for me, the deeper work is not about wanting more, because actually what you want is already present. It's in your blueprint, it's in your design, it's in your truth system, it's in your body technology. What you want and what you're here for exists. And your job is to go in and find what it is that you want so much of. What do you want to be filled up with? What do you want to absolutely devour in every way? And then becoming safe enough to hold that, to accept that, to fill yourself up with that without collapse, without the guilt, without the self-sabotage, without all of the entanglements and entwinements. So for me, it's like I need to grow my nervous system strong enough to be the company that can hold multiple 8 figures, 9 figures per year without the guilt, without the collapse, without the self-sabotage, because I'm tapping into that bigger vision of what it is that I want to be doing. And when I am serving the bigger vision, and that's what I want so badly, and I'm like, oh yes, bring that into me, then $20 million, $30 million, $200 million, it's not enough to do those huge, big things that I want to do. And now it's like, okay, great, let's expand beyond there. Let's want more. Let's bring other people into that wanting, into that vision, into that opportunity to serve the earth, serve women, serve children. And so holding more for yourself also becomes holding more for others and for a greater vision. And that is where greed is in its most potent form. I want a world that is safe for children. I want a world that is safe for everyone. How do I go as one single person and create that? I can't. I need to hold a big vision. I need to invite other people and build this network and build this structure. And so the last 10, 15 years, I have been building these structures of a vision where other people contribute into it, where it's not just mine, it's our collective vision. And that is my deepest greed on this planet, is that we all work together to make a world we all wish to live in. And we collectively believe that we can. That is so different to, I want to make $10 million in my business this year. I hope that this is landing for you, because the final thing that I need to say on this is that it must be transmuted from consumption into creation. It must be transmuted. It must be alchemized. Holy greed does not just take. It circulates, builds, it generates, and it turns desire into this embodied stewardship, this embodied beauty, this overflow, this amazing invitational capacity for you to hold a container for others to move in with you and to create alongside of you in togetherness and in cohesion for this vision to come to. You are not singularly going to change the world. Your body is not designed to. You may not even have this correct amount of resources for, but most importantly, you only have 2 hands in one body and 24 hours in a day. In the multiplication of that, you now have an army of people that are working on the same goals. A Fortune 500 company is not run by one person, and neither should your grand and grandiose vision be either. We need to invite others into this. We need to bring the vision to such a level that it is already bigger than us. Because if you tap into your true vision of your true greed and want and desire in this world, it already exists at a level at the collective where other people want that as well. And as you elevate into that and you live there and you tap into that vision and that creation and that greed and that desire, others also hold the same one, but each one of you is going to be a node in that, a cog in that new machine, in that organizing principle for the creation of that, right? And so you all need to organize yourselves together where each one of you operates your domain of excellence, your domain of mastery. And by the way, mastering yourself is a form of greed. It's a transmuted greed because it means you're so completely full up of yourself. You've devoured yourself. You've mastered yourself. You've been obsessed with yourself in such a way that you have shown up in dedication to knowing who you are, what you do, and honoring and honing in your craft to a level of mastery that requires you to show up every day, to be obsessed with it every day. That's greed transmuted. That's greed alchemized. And so we just need to actually see what greed is. It's like, it's wanting all of that. It's consuming all of that. And the overculture definitely doesn't want masters. It doesn't want people who know how to create their own incomes, their own abundance, their own flow. And it cannot exist. Systems of slavery, capitalism, patriarchy, all of these things, they cannot exist in a world of emboldened masters of their craft who know and understand that abundance is infinite and is theirs to own, and that they can work with the infinite powers of overflow to achieve that at a higher level of vision, at a high level of mastery and quality. And that is why you need to become the greediest, most indulgent, most gluttonous person that you know, and embody that and transmute all reasons why not to be. I love you. Go and create a world. I love you. Bye.